Welcome to part 2. If you haven't watched part 1, stop right now, go back, the link is in the description, because what I'm about to explain will make zero sense without the foundation. For everyone else who's still here, you're about to see the full blueprint, the exact financial mechanism the Federal Reserve is using to engineer a controlled dollar collapse, the 5-step process, the timeline, the endgame. This is the part they don't want you to understand, because once you do, you can't be manipulated by the headlines anymore. Let's go. Let's break down exactly how this engineered collapse works, because once you see the mechanics, you can't unsee it. Step 1. The illusion of stability. Since 2008, the Federal Reserve has operated under a doctrine called quantitative easing. That's the sanitized term. The real term? Money printing. Here's how it works. The Fed creates dollars out of thin air, literally types numbers into a computer, and uses those dollars to buy Treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities from banks. This floods the banking system with cash, drives down interest rates, and inflates asset prices. Stocks go up, real estate goes up, bonds go up. You're told this is a wealth effect that will trickle down. But here's the dirty secret. 83% of stock market wealth is owned by the top 10%. When asset prices inflate, the rich get richer. When your rent and food costs inflate, you get poorer. Same monetary policy, opposite outcomes. And it gets worse. By holding interest rates near zero for a decade, the Fed forced everyone, pension funds, retirees, savers, into riskier and riskier investments just to earn a return. You can't retire on a 0.5% savings account, so you're pushed into the stock market, into junk bonds, into speculative assets. This creates systemic fragility. Everyone's all in. No one has a cushion. Step 2. The foreign central bank exodus. Now, while the Fed was printing dollars domestically, something else was happening internationally. Remember, the dollar's power comes from global demand. Countries need dollars to buy oil, to trade, to hold as reserves. But the Fed's reckless printing since 2008, and especially the $4.8 trillion printed in 2020 alone, has eroded trust. China holds over $3 trillion in foreign reserves. A huge chunk used to be U.S. Treasuries. But since 2021, they've been diversifying, buying gold, stockpiling commodities, building yuan-based trade networks. Russia was cut off from the dollar payment system in SWIFT in 2022 as a sanction. You know what message that sent to every other country? The dollar isn't neutral. It's a weapon, and if you cross the US, your reserves can be frozen overnight. So countries started looking for exits. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, are now actively building alternative payment systems. Over 40 countries have applied to join the bloc. Saudi Arabia is in talks. These aren't fringe economies. This is 45% of the global population and a combined GDP larger than the G7. And they're all moving away from the dollar. Step 3. The Treasury market dysfunction. Here's where it gets technical, but stay with me, this is the kill shot. U.S. Treasury bonds are supposed to be the safest, most liquid asset in the world, the foundation of the global financial system. But in 2023, we saw unprecedented volatility. The Treasury market, a $26 trillion market, started showing signs of illiquidity, meaning when someone wanted to sell, there weren't enough buyers. Why? Because foreign central banks are selling, domestic buyers are tapped out, and the Fed, who was the buyer of last resort during QE, is now trying to reduce its balance sheet. In March 2023, this tension exploded. Silicon Valley Bank collapsed, then Signature Bank, then First Republic. The official story, poor risk management. The real story? These banks were loaded with long-term treasury bonds that collapsed in value when the Fed hiked interest rates. They became insolvent overnight. And the Fed's response?
They launched the Bank Term Funding Program, a new emergency facility that let banks borrow against their underwater bonds at face value, not market value. Read that again. They papered over hundreds of billions in losses with another emergency program. This is controlled demolition. They're keeping the system on life support while they build the next one. Step 4. The digital dollar endgame. Now here's the part that should terrify you. Since 2021, the Federal Reserve has been openly researching and testing a central bank digital currency, a CBDC, a digital dollar. They say it's for efficiency and financial inclusion, but here's what a CBDC actually is. Programmable money. Money that can expire. Money that can be restricted to certain purchases. Money that can be turned off if you say the wrong thing, attend the wrong protest, or fail a social credit score. In China, they already have this. It's called the digital yuan, and it's used for surveillance and control. The Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, and over 100 countries are developing similar systems. And the 2025 dollar collapse? It's the crisis they'll use to roll it out. Think about it. The current dollar system is failing. Foreign confidence is evaporating. Domestic inflation is politically toxic. The Treasury market is dysfunctional. What's the solution they'll offer? A new, modern, digital dollar, stable, transparent, efficient. They'll sell it as a rescue, but it's a cage. Step 5. The timing and the trigger. So when does this happen? The Fed's own projections, buried in the minutes, suggest late 2025 into 2026 as the window when multiple stress factors converge. The reverse repo facility approaches zero, liquidity drain. U.S. debt servicing costs exceed $1 trillion annually due to higher rates. A potential recession or credit event. Commercial real estate is the current landmine. Continued foreign treasury selling. Any one of these could be the trigger. All of them together, it's a guaranteed crisis. And here's the kicker. The Fed has already written the playbook. In a 2022 white paper, they outlined how a CBDC could be implemented in a crisis environment with expedited adoption pathways. Translation: when the next crash hits, they'll have the digital dollar ready to go and you'll accept it because the alternative is chaos. The moral hazard. This entire system is built on moral hazard, the idea that certain institutions are too big to fail and will always be bailed out. Since 2008, we've seen $700 billion in TARP bailouts, $4.5 trillion in QE1, QE2, and QE3, $4.8 trillion in pandemic QE, hundreds of billions in emergency repo, BTFP, and swap lines. Every single time, the message is the same. The system is fragile, so we'll print money to save it. But that money isn't free. It's a tax on your future purchasing power. It's a transfer of wealth from savers to speculators, from the prudent to the reckless. And the cycle keeps accelerating. The time between crises is shrinking. 2008, 2019, 2020, 2023. The amounts are growing. Billions became trillions. And the trust, it's breaking. The numbers don't lie. Let me hit you with the receipts. U.S. national debt, $34 trillion, and climbing $1 trillion every 100 days. Fed balance sheet, peak $9 trillion. Reverse repo facility peak, $2.5 trillion. Foreign holdings of treasuries, down $600 billion since 2021. M2 money supply increase, 2020-2021, 40%. The most in recorded history. These aren't opinions. These are facts. And they all point to the same conclusion. The system is terminally unstable, and the people in charge are preparing for a reset, not a rescue.
So what do? First, understand the stakes. The next collapse won't be like 2008. It won't be isolated to housing or banks. This will be a currency crisis, a crisis of confidence in the dollar itself. And because the dollar is the global reserve currency, when it goes, it takes the entire international financial system with it. We're talking about supply chain breakdowns, bank runs, potential capital controls, and, if they get their way, the forced adoption of a digital surveillance currency. This isn't fear-mongering. This is pattern recognition. Every empire in history that debased its currency collapsed. Rome, Weimar Germany, the Soviet Union, Venezuela, Zimbabwe. America isn't special. The laws of economics don't care about exceptionalism. The only question is, are you going to prepare, or are you going to pretend it can't happen here? Here's the philosophical lesson they don't want you to learn. Institutions built on lies eventually collapse under the weight of their own contradictions. The Federal Reserve was built on the lie that a small group of unelected technocrats can central plan a $25 trillion economy better than free markets. The fiat dollar was built on the lie that money doesn't need tangible backing. The current system is built on the lie that infinite debt and infinite money printing have no consequences. But reality always wins. Always. The crash is coming. The warning signs are everywhere. The 99% aren't paying attention, but you are. So here's what I need you to do. Share this video. Share part 1. Comment below with your thoughts. Are we wiser now, or are we walking the same path in better suits? And subscribe, because this channel is dedicated to the truth they're trying to bury. The collapse is inevitable, but being informed, that's your choice. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and whatever you do, don't trust the people who profit from your ignorance. I'll see you in the next one.